Hello everybody, welcome back to Cure for the Common Game. Today, we're going to do an EDH set review for Visions. Now, Visions came out in February of 1997. It had 167 cards, and it's kind of weird. 50 rare, 55 uncommon, and 62 common. And these are the ones that, I feel are EDH worthy or have had impact, or I don't know. Let's check it out. Anvil of Bogard. Now, this was supposed to be a variant of Howling Mine, obviously, 2-mana artifact. Each player skips his or her discard phase. Hey, that doesn't sound bad, right? During each player's draw step, that player draws an additional card and then chooses and discards. So you draw 2, discard 1. And nobody has a discard phase. I haven't played with Anvil of Bogard in so long that I'm not sure if I'm sure there's been some Oracle updating, but it is a great card for just that, drawing and discarding. Now, there are other options, yes, that you can personally draw and discard, and you are giving your opponent more options, what have you, but at the time this was printed, this was kind of all we had. But if you're selectively filling a graveyard, it's a pretty good rock to have. Now, Blanket of Night, keep in mind this was a long time before Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth came out. But this was kind of neat. Each mana-producing land is a swamp in addition to its normal land type. This gave Swamp Walk I used it pretty much for all the same reasons why we use Urborg nowadays. But it is a fairly decent backup if you are in a deck that you have to have that ability. It might be worth 3 mana to have a backup for your Urborg if you don't have, reliable ways to search up your Urborg. Now, Breathstealer's Crypt. There's something here. There's something here now. My brain's been working on it. Whenever any player draws a card, he or she reveals that card. If it's a creature, they pay 3 life or discard it. Now, creatures are, of course, the number one creature type that we play in this game. And it's any player. So we could, in theory, blue and black, we could, in theory, build a creatureless or almost creatureless deck to kind of take advantage of this. I don't know if this is worth building an entire deck around, but we might stumble into other cards that may, I don't know. It's a good deck building experiment, probably, and I may get to it down the road. It may be a good build for some of those vanilla legends from actual Legends. Chronotog, this is my baby right here. This was the only ATOG I think I played the heck out of. It sounds really, really bad. 2 mana, 1/2. You skip your next turn to give it +3/+3, but you can only use this ability once each turn. Now, I'm that guy. I had Stasis out. I had Black Vice out. I'm going to skip the rest of my turns forever, and you're just going to sit there and die to the Black Vice. That works in 2-player, but in multiplayer, you've got to have especially 100-card singleton, we've got to have a little bit deeper of a plan. But it is a really good component in, stasis lock decks because you just skip your turn. There is a deck that I am mentally toying around with, and Chronotog will be in it. I just want to never have a turn. Which sounds like just the weirdest thing coming from a Magic player, especially, playing a blue deck. But the idea is I want to never, ever have a turn. And I'm thinking Chronotog may be involved in that. Teferi's Protection may be involved in that. I'm not exactly certain exactly how I'm going to pull that off, but it's a novel idea that I had, and I'm maybe able to make that work. City of Solitude. Not only is this gorgeous art, it's just a wonderful card. Shuts down instant speed, essentially. I say instant speed. Each player may only play spells. Oh, I'm sorry, the word only is not in there. Each player may play spells and abilities only during his or her turn. So, my turn is my turn. Your turn is your turn. No spells, no abilities. You can't counter nothing. You will not in response. In response, you'll watch me do it. It was the great anti-counter spell card. But in reality, how it turned out is they saved their counterspell for your City of Solitude, which is fine. I mean, either way. Creeping Mold. Now, I know Creeping Mold has been eclipsed, I don't know, a couple of dozen times. But I still find myself every now and then using it. Mono green, you don't have a lot of other options. You know what? Destroy an artifact, a land, or an enchantment. 4 mana sorcery. If this was 3 mana, it would be outstanding. But even at 4, it saw a bunch of play, and I still play it for redundancy's purposes. Crypt Rats. Now, this is relevant because this is coming back in Modern Horizons, I believe. Now, I've had the most fun with Crypt Rats in a black-white deck because I would put the black ward on it where it can't take damage from black sources, and then I would put a Spirit Link on it. A Spirit Link on Crypt Rats is ridiculous amounts of life. Even if you're just activating it for 3, you had to have 3 to play the rats, right? So even if you're just activating the Crypt Rat for 3, that is 3 damage to each creature and each player. Oh, and you're going to gain life for each of those targets. So, yeah, you can get up there in life and keep a board clear pretty easy. Oh, Desertion. This still makes my stomach churn. I had... the very first time I ever cast a Mirror Universe, somebody cast Desertion. And they're like, thanks for the Mirror Universe. I didn't even know this card existed because Visions had just come out, and I was like, oh, man. Anyway, it's a good card. Counters a spell. I'm going to read them for you audiophiles who listen. I listen to a lot of podcasts and a lot of stuff that's meant for video, but I listen to the audio version because I drive a lot. But it says for 5 mana, you get it now an instant. It was an interrupt. Counter target spell. If that spell is an artifact or summon spell, put that card into play under your control as though it were just played. So that's how they got my Mirror Universe. Elephant Grass is the green propaganda. That's right. Now, it does cost 1 mana, and it has a cumulative upkeep of a generic. So, and it just flat out says black creatures cannot attack you. But non-black creatures can't attack you unless, of course, they pay 2 for each one. So, this is neat. Cumulative upkeep, I mean, it's going to grow by 1 every turn. We're in green. We probably don't have a problem paying it for a little while. But, you know, it's not... How long does Propaganda Ghostly Prison stay around anyway? I mean, I don't know. I see them played and stick for, the entirety of games, and then sometimes you see them and they get blown up after a turn or 2. Don't know. It's nowhere near as good as those, but it fills a hole if you need it filled. Femurith Enchantress for a white and a green. You get a 1/2 that whenever an enchantment is put into any graveyard from play, draw a card. Now, this was kind of combo-licious with the insta-enchantments. They were auras that you could play at instant speed, but if you did, they died in a turn. So you could draw a card that way. And now we have all of these Enchantress decks. It's not bad. I mean, we don't want our enchantments to inherently hit the graveyard, but, when they do, hey, you draw a card off of it. Forbidden Ritual. There was a 60-card deck with this that I have migrated over. I don't know which deck it is. I know it's green and black. Forbidden Ritual. 2 generic and 2 black. You sack a card in play. Target opponent loses 2 life unless they sack a permanent or discard a card. And you may repeat this as many times as you choose. So it was recycle deck where you put your entire deck into play and you had every 0 mana anything and you just churned through the deck, and then you had all these permanents, and then you just played Forbidden Ritual and sacked everything. Now, it doesn't translate that well to 40 life total 4-player games. So, it's not as outstanding, but this is a decent card for... Because we have the format where we generate infinite tokens a lot, or infinite whatever. It's not bad. Goblin Recruiter. I need to get me one of these because I don't have one for my Pashiri Mons deck that I am currently building. I'm almost actually done with it. Before the card comes out. That's weird. But when Goblin Recruiter comes into play, you can search your library for any number of goblins. You show them, and then shuffle your library and put those on top in any order. So everybody knows you're going to be drawing goblins for however many cards you picked. There's some risk to it in our format, because if you just, smack up all your goblins on top of your deck, and somebody's sitting there with a, some kind of fancy mill card, you're getting hit or something. I don't, I like to use the Goblin Recruiter and then the Song of Blood to, do a big shot. Combat damage. Now, Griffin Canyon is the greatest land in the game of Magic. Okay, maybe not. But it is the only land that cares about Griffins. So, and y'all know from the last video how much I love my Griffin deck. But it does tap for a colorless. I wonder if this is a wingding. An actual diamond colorless. Probably, because it does say colorless. And not a 1 in a circle. But you can untap a Griffin, and it gets 1/1 till end of turn. So, yes, I do have it in my Griffin deck. It's pretty neat. Not pretty versatile, but it's alright. And hey, if you catch yourself playing a lot of changelings, maybe. Helm of Awakening. Now, Helm of Awakening, besides being a really cool combo with Sensei's Divining Top and Future Sight, yeah, I'll give you all a minute to sink that in, is it does all spells cost 1 generic mana less to play. Yeah, that's a thing, even your opponents, but more than likely you are just going to abuse it, because cards like Sensei's Divining Top become free. Future Sight says you can play the top card of your library as though it were in your hand. So you tap the top, draw a card, put the top on top of your library. Use Future Sight to play the top for 0 mana. Rinse and repeat. You draw your library. But it has other obviously valuable purposes anyway. It reduces spells. So anything that reduces spell cost, you got to give a second look at, right? Impulse. My favorite misprint. A lot of people don't realize this is a misprint, but every single copy was misprinted. Every one of the Visions impulses were. So I don't know. I guess that's probably the best policy. Once Wizards finds a misprint, they won't stop the press and reprint, because they realize they're making a collectible game, and that corrected variants, depending on which one there was fewer copies of, they would artificially be making something rare, and that's not what they intended to do. So, and that screws up their whole plan of rarity. So anyway, you look at the top 4 cards of your library, put one of them into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library. Shuffle your library afterwards. The misprint is that last line. What does it matter if you put them on the top or bottom if you're going to shuffle your library? That last line shouldn't be there. And if you'll notice in all successive printings of Impulse, that line is gone. So it is not there. It does not instruct you to shuffle your library. Thank goodness we actually got the errata on this. In between the pre-release and the time it became legal. So it didn't really impact, other than, how did y'all let that slip? Either way, a good card. Karu, or Karu. Karu. Yeah, I think that's the general consensus. It is Karu. Now, this is a cycle, and there's 5 of them, one for each color. I chose this one because it's kind of what the cycle is named after, of the Karu lands from Visions. Now, they all come into play tapped. And when they come into play, you return an untapped, in this case, plains, depending on whatever color it is. Untapped, therefore useful. Or you bury this card. But the upside is you tap it for a white and a colorless, so you get 2 mana out of this from now on. It was the original bounce lands. It's kind of what they based the guild bounce lands off of when they got to Ravnica. But, it comes into play. There are times when this can be useful. I mean, I guess it depends on if you've got your handy-dandy Candelabra of Talanos or whatnot. But, in monocolor decks, a lot of times I'll use like the white one and the red one because they typically have a harder time with ramp, and while not ramp, but it kind of is at the same time. I don't know. Magma Mine. Here again, we have the format known for generating infinite mana. You wanna load up a mine, 1 to cast, 4 to charge. 4 : put a counter on it. It's a pressure counter. I like that, not a charge counter. But you sack it, and for each pressure counter on it, it deals 1 damage to target creature or player. I'm almost certain that this has been errata in the Oracle to deal the 1 mass amount of damage, because the way it's worded, it's going to deal 1 a whole bunch of times. And if that's the case, it's not as good, I don't think. Natural Order is a beast. No pun intended there. 4 mana, sack a green creature, search your library for a green creature, and put it into play. So, we've been sacking Llanowar Elves and getting Force of Natures forever. Although nowadays we have, lots better targets. We have a giant 16/16 worm that we can, sack off of our Llanowar Elf. Yeah. And if you... Let's see. How quick can you do that? If you randomly get lucky and get your Soul Ring on turn 1, you can turn 1 Forest Soul Ring, turn 2 Forest. You've got the mana, but you don't have the creature. So, I don't know. Are we going to go down Christmas Land and say we got the Petal and the Llanowar? Living the dream, you could do it on turn 2, but more than likely turn 3 is the best you can hope for, and even that, the odds are incredibly stacked against you. But either way, beyond that scenario, you're getting to sacrifice a creature, which a lot of decks want to do, and then you're getting to tutor a creature into play. It just has to be green. So, Progenitus is green. Reaper King is green. Yeah, it's kind of neat, isn't it? Necrotal. Now, while this pales in comparison to, like, say, Ravenous Chupacabra that we get nowadays for the same cost, this was the first. This was the first 1/8/7 creature. It was a 2/1 first strike for 4 mana that when it came into play, it terrored something. That was terror. Bury target non-artifact, non-black creature. The Chuppa thingy is significantly better in every way. I do like Necrotal, and there are decks where I play Necrotal. Now, it's generally in decks where I play all of them. I'm going to play the Shriekmaw and the Necrotal and the Chuppa thingy and, all the stuff. Phyrexian Walker. This is, obviously, we know this card from Eggs. It's, the 0 cast decks have played this since it came out, but I wanted to mention it now because while not a wall, it is a 0/3 for free. So all of those decks that care about toughness matters and dealing damage equal to toughness, this is a free 0-3-3-3, kind of, it's not bad. Prosperity, another one of the key components to the Prosbloom deck, hence the name. You always question the player casting Prosperity. Always. They're not doing it to help you. There is an ulterior motive. If not, they would have just spent one more mana and played a Brain Geyser, or 2 more mana and played any of the I personally draw cards. But it is a good card, and if you're running Underworld Dream style effects, maybe the Keteric Parasite or the creatures that do it, Prosperity is pretty awesome. This was the first printing of Relentless Assault. So I love the fact that Squee gets mentioned in here. We have to believe it's the same Squee in this nursery rhyme. I don't know, but you get another combat step. Untap all creatures that attacked this turn, so that's important. This was the first printing of it. It's the first time they ever did anything, so you only got to untap the creatures that attacked. Like if you tap to use abilities and stuff like that, those did not untap. You may declare an additional attack during your main phase this turn, so you just got additional attack. Nowadays, you get additional combat steps. Sometimes they give you additional main phases afterwards. It's various colors of the rainbow, but this was the pinnacle. This is where extra combats started. Retribution of the Meek. Speaking of those 0 power wall decks, this is a really good board wipe for those style decks, because you really don't care, because the whole deck doesn't have anything. I think maybe your Dragon Commander, if that's the one if you're using Doran, man, it's all gravy then. But Retribution of the Meek kills a lot more things in our format than you think, because typically the small creatures that we play are either ramp or utility or whatnot, and we're going to beat face with big things. That's what we do. That's why we play this format. Retribution of the Meek kills most of them. Righteous War. All white creatures you control gain Pro Black, and all black creatures you control gain Pro White. So obviously what I want to do with it, and I think this may be in a couple decks up there, play as many black-white combined cards as possible so they have double protection. Pro Black and Pro White is protection from a lot of the spot removal that's out there. So it's not bad. And that gives you your team protection from 2 colors that can't block it. So, that's pretty sweet too. CSA's Ring. Now, yes, I know it's bad. I know it is. Everybody just stopped watching right there, I'm pretty sure. Soul Ring is so good, they can make it cost 4 times as much, and I'll still play the dang thing. CSA's Ring is a 4 mana Soul Ring. There's no other way to put it. I don't run it all the time. There are decks I feel that call for it. The decks where I want a ton of rocks that produce colorless mana. And if I know that I need 15 artifacts that produce mana, CSA's Ring's probably getting tapped. Probably is. Snake Basket. Now, what I love about Snake Basket in our format is it's a way to create green creatures in non-green decks, because this card is colorless. 4 generic mana, X and sack it to put X Cobras, I think they're 1/1 snakes now, into play. So, I love this. In several artifact decks I have built, I run Snake Basket and things like it to feed, Eldrazi Monuments, or to feed Skull Clamps, what have you. So, and it's one of those things you can do at any time. You're like, oh, so you're going to kill my big mana combo? Well, in response, I'm going to dump 50 mana into Snake Basket. Squander Resources. This was another part of the Prosbloom deck, because the whole deck was in 3 sets. Minus City of Brass, but Squander Resource is still a great card. I believe it's also on the list, maybe? I'm not sure. Black and a green, sack a land to get a mana of any land that could produce. Now, I thought this would be in every single Gitrog deck or Windgrace deck ever, but I may be the only one that's doing it. I don't know. I don't see a lot of other Gitrog and or Windgrace decks, so I see mine, obviously, but it's a great card for that, especially with the ability to play with Crucible. The ability to play lands from a graveyard, it's kind of sweet. Stampeding Wildebeest. So good, they made a copy of Stampeding Sero in one of the Kamigawa sets. 5/4 trample for 4. The drawback is, during your upkeep, you have to return a green creature. Now, what if you don't have a green creature? Well, you do, because this is a green creature. So worst case scenario, you're recasting this every turn, which seems dumb, because it is. But the reason why I love this card so much is green has so many 1/8/7 creatures. You know, we all play Reclamation Sage, and that's awesome. I'm just going to return the Reclamation Sage to my hand every turn, or better yet, Eternal Witness. I'll bring Eternal Witness back to my hand every turn. That seems good. The Utabi Orangutan, the Elvish Visionary, if nothing else. I mean, there's a lot of good green cards that you want to keep getting that comes into playability over and over with. So it's not bad. In decks that I run the Wildebeest, I'm going to run both the Wildebeest and the Sero because they're identical. One's just like a spirit or something. Suleiman's Legacy. Hey, y'all remember that period of time where Djinns and Ifrits just took over Magic? Yeah, me neither. This is why. I say that, no. They actually, I don't know. They used to give us answers. It was weird the way they gave them to us. Here they gave us the answer, but they never gave us the problem. It's like they never had Djinns and Ifrits that were super powered. You know, the Urnam Djinn was kind of a thing for a while back in the early days, but that was kind of it. I mean, so basically I'm just putting this card up here so y'all know that it exists. Hey, if your meta ever gets dominated by Djinns and Ifrits, Vision's got you. First printing of Summer Bloom. Yeah. 2 mana, just play 3 additional lands this turn. Obviously, I run this in Azusa and your land-heavy landfall decks. You know, Azusa may be one of my personal favorites because I just love to play lands and I love to do busted things with lands. So, Teferi's Puzzle Box. Now, yes, I'm here again, not the finance guy, but I'm betting Teferi's Puzzle Box shot up in price here recently with the new Narset Planeswalker coming out. yeah, that's kind of funny, isn't it? During each player's draw phase, I'll read the card as it's printed. That player counts the cards in his or her hand and puts those cards on the bottom of their library and then draws that number of cards. Well, of course, New Narset says they can't draw more than 1 card a turn, so they just put their hand on the bottom and draw 1 card and feel sad, and they all come for you then. You know, that's how that works. But still a great combo. There's a lot of good things with Puzzle Box. The Nekuzar decks love it. The Underworld Dreams deck, stuff like that. I mean, it's a great, great card. Tithe, speaking of great cards, man, this thing has been played since it came out. This was never a sleeper card. We were excited about it. You just 1 mana. More times than not, you get 2 planes. Especially if you went 2nd or 3rd and 4th in our case. For 1 mana, you're going to get 2 planes and put it in your hand. That's power only seen at land tax level thing. So, it's really good. Here's the Utabi Orangutan. I don't know how this art got past the art direction. I don't know. I'm sure the artist did not paint it to look like what it looks like, but can't help it. Anyway, it's one of the original Rexage. Rexage, of course, is better because now it hits an artifact or an enchantment, and the orangutan just hits the artifact. So back then they made 2 cards, one to hit an enchantment and one to hit an artifact, because this was the first set where they really come around with comes into play effects, and they started getting into that design space. Now, Undiscovered Paradise, speaking of, I don't even own one of these cards anymore. Wouldn't know how expensive it is, couldn't tell you. But here again, landfall decks. You tap to add a mana of any color, and then at the beginning of your next untap step, this bounces back to your hand. So it is an any color land. Yeah, right? But you've got to play it every turn. So, I mean, there are certain times in your landfall deck, if you can't make a land drop, I mean, it feels bad. It feels like you're losing value in those decks. Undiscovered Paradise lets you, and like, what's the other one? Ghost Quarter or something, where you can just put it back in your hand for no reason. This can get you reliable land drops. Vampiric Tutor is the black part of the cycle. Y'all know we saw white, blue, and green in Mirage yesterday, or whenever I did Mirage. This is the black one, and of course the absolute best. It's the only one that requires life payment, because you go get any card. I love the art style because it was kind of taken from the original Demonic Tutor. I mean, it's I like it. I like it a lot. Incredibly good. If you've got, I'm not going to sit here and tell you why you need a tutor. If you can produce a black mana, your deck would probably be better with a Vampiric Tutor, obviously. But it does cost some serious cash dollars. I mean, it's just too good. And that is what we have got for Visions. Visions, kind of a small set, not as much to talk about. So I do appreciate y'all watching, and we will see y'all later.